Good, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you all to the House Regulated Industries Committee meeting. I want to thank the members on their day off, if you call this a day off, before crossover day, for being here this afternoon. We've got two bills up today. First, we're going to take House Bill 1232, should be a very short bill, by Representative Reeves, and he can give you the gist if he can do it in 60 seconds.
Absolutely, 60 seconds. House Bill 1232, Chairman and members of the committee, allows wine sales at wine stores or wine bars which operate Monday through Saturday if the locals have had a Sunday sales referendum and if the locals allow it. You can breweries can serve on Sunday and restaurants which have 50% food can serve on Sunday, but this state law needs to be amended to allow those wine stores that are operating well across Georgia to operate. I will keep this bill narrow if you choose to send it on to the House floor, and if the House chooses to send it to the Senate, it's very narrow. We've done recon with Department of Revenue, the Senate, and others, and we respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
That's quick enough. You got a couple of questions, and I'll see if I can't just get to the gist of this. You know, when we passed Sunday sales a few years ago, it's food service. I'm not familiar, since I'm not a wine drinker. I'm Baptist, I drink whiskey. And I'm not familiar with this deal about people opening up a business model just to sell wine. I was under the impression that the locals could handle this on their own, but they can't. In consultation with the illustrious chairman over on the Senate side, he kind of gave a blush, even though he doesn't like to deal with the Sunday, opening up the Sunday section. I don't like opening up any section. And I think I have the commitment from this author that this bill will only be used for what's the purpose and not to be a vehicle for anything else.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Because as most of the committee knows, that any time you deal with an alcohol issue, it's like hemming up mercury. You can put your finger on it and it squirts in 5 different directions. And that's the commitment that he's given, Chairman Carpenter.
I hear you loud and clear over there. If there ever is a need for a vehicle, though, I got some good ideas.
Well, it's too late in the day for vehicles.
The names of these wine bars are great, but I know I need to keep it at 60 seconds. But I'll tell you all offline, they're great names, creative.
I'm presuming that's a place that lonely men can go on Sundays to pick up chicks, probably. Number 19.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not familiar with the hemming up mercury term, but I'm very familiar with the representative's work on this issue and the commitment, and I'm prepared to make a motion to pass.
This isn't the time, but you'll get that in a minute. Number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want the author to know that the people of District 56, especially those in Midtown Atlanta, absolutely love the bill, and they have said Representative Maynard vote yes on this bill after the do pass motion.
Thank you.
Very good. And my name is Alan Powell, and I'm the chairman and not the speaker. Number 23. Mr. McDonald.
There's a wine store in the Highland area off North Highland Drive, and not that I was going to drink wine, but I went in there the other day with my wife. You can do flights, but when I went to purchase the bottle for my wife, they said I could not open it in their store. I had to go outside. Is that a law, or is that a local law? I mean, I didn't know. Is this what the difference in your wine store serving it than the one in North Highland?
I don't know, but I'll tell you the way they do it in my area and across several other stores. You can get a glass of wine there, and then you could buy a bottle of wine to take home. That's the model I've seen.
All right. Number 26.
Thank you, Chairman. Just some clarity. So you've got a couple of different licenses. You got a package license and you got a retail license. So apparently they have a package license which allows you to let sample, but they don't have the by the glass license. So that's why you're running into that.
That did bring up, you've got Department of Revenue in addition to the Sunday sales referendum and the local referendum. So you've really got 3 approvals these stores have to go through, and this would just allow them to go through that process.
Well, I see no other questions, and my pinky finger has already started turning for the wine. Representative Mitchell, I think this is the time for you to be recognized.
Move to pass, Mr. Speaker.
We have a motion. We have a second. Do we have any further questions? Do we have any comments? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Thank you so much.
And I hope this comes back in the same form that I see.
Absolutely.
That means we won't be seeing it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, HB 1260 by our distinguished representative from Clark County. To the committee members, y'all may remember we've had some discussion on this. We had a couple of committee meetings, subcommittee meetings on this. Representative Gaines is attempting to set up a registry of the vape products that's acceptable for this state, since this seems to be the wild, wild west of vapes, whether they be tobacco-based, nicotine-based, or any other based, synthetic-based, and all other products. I had expressed myself, as well as a couple of subcommittee chairs had expressed concerns about this bill. About one, my main concern is getting in bed with the FDA. I've never seen anything good comes out of dealing with anything the federal government's got their fingers into, because if they can foul it up, they will. But that being said, it's the only game in town. There's a substitute in front of you that I've worked with Representative Gaines on, and if you want to take a good look at it, do you want to speak to it, or would you like for me to speak to it?
I'll speak to just. I just got the substitute about 5 minutes ago, so I read it and I quickly reviewed it. But I think, generally speaking, you can speak to your changes. But in terms of what we've done overall, is I know there's been a lot of conversation about which department this should be in. It's totally removed from the Department of Agriculture. It now would rest with the Department of Revenue and the Attorney General for both enforcement and compliance, and the registry. I think that's the biggest change, in addition to you may want to speak to the changes you've made. But in terms of, well, I think we've all agreed on is the Department of Ag didn't make sense. But getting it under the Attorney General and the Revenue Department of Revenue makes sense. And I do think the goal here, as you stated, Ms. Chairman, is to we do have the wild, wild west when it comes to vaping products in the state. You have products that are just coming off the boat from China that nobody has any clue what's in them, and we've got to get that under control. And so that's the objective here, is to create a registry and then an enforcement mechanism to do that.
Very good. If I might just address the bill with the author's permission a little bit. We used the basis of his bill that had been submitted. If you may remember, the original bill put most of all of this for the registry over to the Department of Agriculture. And after a certain level of work on Saturday, while some people were enjoying the companionship of their girlfriends or wives, I was dealing with the folks from agriculture right over there. And I just tell you, these are dedicated. Austin is a very dedicated employee, because I think he and I were in communication while he was at a wedding. Worse. A bachelor party. At which time he reminded me something that I'd long since forgot, that over at the Attorney General's office, we have a tobacco registry already that's been there since the 90s, when the tobacco settlement taxes were dispensed and worked on. And after discussion with the Revenue Department about trying not to create another outlandish bureaucracy, but to put a registry so we know what is acceptable and what's not, we've come up with the idea that the AG's office would maintain that registry. And these vape products would be then electronically transmitted and worked with through coordination with the Department of Revenue, Alcohol and Tobacco. And they would in turn deal with the FDA and those type of agencies about what is and what's not to create this registry. Alcohol and tobacco enforcement, in the course of their cursory duties of monitoring stores that are licensed for alcohol and tobacco, they could be checking at this, but also local law enforcement could be checking at it. So, you know, your police departments and things like that in the past, you know, they treat tobacco like it's a bigger sin than alcohol. Once upon a time, it used to be a big deal about checking stores for selling alcohol to minors. Well, it's become just as big an enterprise of checking them for tobacco now. So this allows local law to also be able to go to that registry and to look at that registry if they see things that may not be legal or acceptable. You'll find that language and that interaction between the AG's office and revenue, and the promulgation of rules and regs will be in the bottom part of, on page 3 and 4. As you get on through the bill, there's due process. There's a fee, payment of $1,000 for each nicotine vapor product for the first time, $250, which matches the federal FDA list to help pay for this process. You get into, let's see, page 6 basically it does the advertising and the consultation issues again between AG and Department of Revenue. Due process is in here so that they can appeal on any form, since we do believe that everybody and every motion has due process. You get into line on page 9 dealing with retail stores, that a store that has a quantity of 20 nicotine vapor products of less, if they're caught violating. First violation, there's no penalty if the nicotine products are removed as provided in this chapter. But from there on, it goes to a fine situation for the second, for the third, and the fourth violation, which is pretty punitive to the fact of a 12-month on the second offense, a violation with a 12-month period, a fine of 10 times the retail value of the nicotine products, which was generally the language in the original bill. And it goes on down. Then you hit line 216. This deals with those stores that have 20 or more vapor products. And then we also give them a pass on the first, as long as they're notified and the products are removed. But then on the second, third, and subsequent offenses, the fines go to $10,000 on the second offense, $10,000, $20,000 on the third, $30,000 on the fourth, and so-called and revocation on the fourth violation. So, you know, it is pretty heavy penalties. Not like the feds at the $70,000 and stuff like that, but that's the difference between the state and the feds. We think we can get their attention with that type of a fine structure. And then you go down through open records, and you go through all of that process. And then last but not least, you get to page 14. It's starting on January the 31st, the first year in which this chapter becomes effective, that the AG and the State Revenue Commissioner shall provide a joint report to the General Assembly regarding the status of the directory, something that would give the members of the General Assembly a little bit of insight where it doesn't fall off the radar screen. One of the reasons that dates had been taken out, and I'm certainly not an attorney, but it's a pretty complicated system, that if the date stood that 2016 to 2020, the FDA took applications for tobacco-based vapors. After 20 to 22, then they went into the other issues, the nicotine and the synthetic nicotine, which is quite frankly treated different from tobacco-based. And we had some concerns that this was going to limit competition in this market. So the dates were taken out of this, and that's as best that I can explain it. Very complicated subject, which is why this committee passed a study committee resolution out last week, so that after the session we can start looking, because there's a lot of things in there that I didn't know, quite frankly, as the chairman of this committee and somebody who is a big supporter of tobacco, and I have the biggest vice in the world for just about every tobacco product. But I didn't know that a lot of these stores, that they mix their own. I didn't realize that was such a thing, but some of these vape stores, they have canisters of whatever, and nicotine-based stuff, and it's almost like going to an old-fashioned tobacco shop when they used to mix up pipe tobacco for folks, that they mix up certain vape products. So, there's a lot of parts, movable parts in here, that hopefully the study committee will get into the weeds in the interim on this. So next year, if there's any other needs to change, that we'll do that at that time. That being said, that's all I can allow for this subject. Number 28.
Yes, sir. I just like to. You was talking about the non-tobacco products, the synthetic. What are we doing on those? And I guess my question is, will they still have to have a pre-marketing authorization that the FDA requires in
It's
order
my
for us to sell those?
understanding that any vape product, tobacco-based, nicotine-based, or whatever else,
Has to have the authorization.
And we didn't get into the whatever else.
Okay.
We're gonna rely, believe it or not, we're actually gonna rely on the FDA as bad as I dislike dealing with anything to the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
Number 25.
Thank you for bringing the bill. I have a quick question about what, and forgive me if this question was answered previously, but 20 nicotine vapor products. So when you say a vapor product, and I only have my own industry to go by, if I have 100 products in my warehouse, I might have, with one product, I might have 100 or 200 or 1,000 units of that product. So when you say a violation of a total quantity of 20 nicotine vapor products, does that mean individual units?
It does. And the reason that it was separated out in conversation with the convenience stores and other folks was the thinking being, if there's less than 20, it was probably accidentally left over on the shelf. It wasn't, it was less likely to be intentionally selling illegal products. And so that's why we delineated between less than 20 and greater than 20 individual products on the shelves.
Got it, because that's not very much, really.
No, and again, the thought was that if it is less than 20, it probably was just unintentional.
Thank you.
And I think we're also differentiating when we say under 20 and over 20. And that's certainly subject to move at some point, that we're talking about the difference between a normal store, which would be a C-store, a gas station, a Walmart, a grocery store that sells products, as opposed to just a straight up and down vape store that seemed to have been the new way of going into business this day and time. Number 24.
Thank you, Chairman. If a consumer were to see the products, who would they call? Would they call like the Attorney General Consumer Reporting Line? What would be the consumers or citizens?
Either the Attorney General or Department of Revenue, either one of those offices. The enforcement's really probably calling the Attorney General's office would make the most sense.
Okay, thank you.
But that's a fair question that maybe we could add some additional language at some point in this.
Or they could call their local police department or law
That's true,
enforcement.
yeah.
If something is a suspicion to them that there's something is being offered for sale, they can go online and see the registry of
Right.
products. But if something comes up that somebody may get sick from, or they might think that there's something else, then they may wish to report it. Because I know the City of Atlanta PD, they've got plenty of time to do other things. All right. Questions? Number 18, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is on line number 294. This state as a foreign corporation or business entity. So just to make sure that I'm clear, this is not just to have a registry for foreign corporations and business entities. Those foreign companies also can operate within the United States and push their product that way too. So should this read foreign and domestic corporation and business entities?
Is that your question?
Yes, sir, that's my question.
Sean Marie, would you?
Yeah, that might be a
you're
Sean
the
Marie
legal-
question.
On line 294.
I think it's meant to be if you're not registered with the Secretary of State's office.
Out of state, yeah.
That a foreign, I believe, means.
Not in the state, yeah.
So, if I may follow up, Mr. Chairman, so if they are registered with the Secretary of State and it's a vaping company and they're domestic, they're not required to be in the registry?
They are, this is just dealing with who they would contact in the event that, I think you could serve, provide service upon them. Because otherwise, it's talking about who that they could serve.
If they don't comply.
Secretary of State's office would be who you would serve process on, and that's.
All right, I need a noodle on that just a little bit more because I know from an e-commerce standpoint, you can be a foreign entity based in the United States, and if their products are in the same, operating in the same industry that this bill is looking at, this sounds like to me that one group, domestic group, is in a registry with the Secretary of State, and then the foreign corporations and business entities are in the Attorney General
So I
registry.
believe, and Sean Marie, please feel free to tell me if this is inaccurate, but I believe what all this is saying is if you're not registered with the Secretary of State's office and you want to be included in the registry, then you have to provide information to know if you violate being a part of the registry, how the Attorney General can enforce that. That's all this is saying if you are not currently registered with the SOS, the Attorney General needs a phone number, proof of appointment, name, address to go and find you. Is that accurate?
In terms of the directory, they're treated the same. This is just about servicing the process.
So they have the option, they make that call, that the business entity make that call, or?
If they want to be a part of the registry and they're not Georgia-based or not registered with the Secretary of State, then they have to provide this information. That's all that's saying, I believe.
Second.
All right.
Because I believe what she is saying, that in this bill, if you're selling a vape product, that vape product has got to be on the registry. If you're a foreign corporation that's selling it, you can either be registered in the Secretary of State as a corporate division or provide the information so that you can be served.
But they have the option, though. It sounds like the entity has the option.
Yeah, that would probably be correct. Yes.
And typically when we refer to foreign corporation in other parts of the code, and maybe it should be defined here, but typically like if you're looking in Title 14, it's that they're outside of this state's jurisdiction, not necessarily meaning someplace outside of this country, just outside of this state. So you're not domesticated here in Georgia, like you didn't set up your corporation
Okay.
in Georgia.
Okay.
All right. Number 26 again.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to tell you I appreciate both of you guys working on this legislation because, this is an epidemic, a guy with kids. This is an epidemic, and I think if we provide our local law enforcement with the directory so they know what's legal and illegal, it's going to help them keep these products out of the hands of our children. Even though it says 21, let's all be honest here. I don't know if we did a poll, but how many people waited till they were 21 to drink a beer, and it's been 21 or 18 if it was 18. So it's happening, So let's, being able to take that stuff off the shelves is important to protect our children and other people and that happen to partake in this. So thank you for the legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You cleaned that up a lot better than I would have said it, but, I think people tend to forget, though, it's still illegal for anybody under the age of 21. It is. So we're talking about a consumer protection protocol on this. Thank you. Number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For lines 292 to 302, the way I'm reading this, when you have a business, if you are not located in the state, so someone can contact you, you need to have a registered agent. This is just saying you must have a registered agent, whether you are the business entity, meaning on 294, the Georgia business, or a foreign corporation. They're saying Georgia business versus not Georgia business, but this is just Representative Jackson for the registered agent for a business.
I take your word for it.
I believe that's right.
28.
Oh, I just had a quick question. So back to what we kind of talked about earlier. You still have to have the FDA approval list or the pending list. You have to be on that, and you have to submit that to the state to be able to be on the registry to be able to sell. Is that correct?
It's my understanding.
Okay, and that's the non-tobacco, whatever.
That would be
the
the
synthetic
tobacco,
stuff or
non-tobacco,
whatever.
Synthetic or, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. All right. I don't see any more lights lit up. We must have done a pretty good job in tandem, Representative.
Thank
But
you,
I
Mr.
would
Chairman.
still remind everybody that the only thing that was difficult for me to hem up on this was this date business. I was told that the FDA had accepted applications from 16 to 20. Congress didn't even approve the rest of it into 22, and it appeared to be non-competitive, even to the fact that there was litigation filed in federal court about the FDA's process that might have been questionable. And one of the things that I'm more concerned than any is I do not wish to pass anything out knowingly or unknowingly that could embroil the state of Georgia into litigation. So that's my point. I don't see any other questions. What is the will of this committee? We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Any comments? No? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative.
Thank you.
I think you just made the speaker and a lot of folks who wanted to see some kind of a list out there of what's legal to sell and what's not. And again, I want to give my sincerest thanks to the folks over at Revenue Department.
And Sean Marie.
And of course, what am I thinking? Sean Marie, who
She
diligently
worked, she worked overtime on this one, so.
as she always does. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for being here today, and this meeting's adjourned.